What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Nehemiah, aka Neo, and today we're gonna be finishing off this horrible list. I already got a little sneak peek about it, and I was gonna upload a YouTube short about some of the picks, including Devin Booker, I already knew where he was gonna be placed based off of this one. I already looked at this one, so yeah, let's just get into it. I just want to talk about some of these placements. Also, there's a couple things that I did want to note from the last video that I did about this. Colton Sexton not being in the top 100 makes no sense. Jalen Brunson, again, was way lower than he should be. And Anthony Edwards should not be a top 25 player. I don't think that he's nearly as good as this list kind of makes him out to be. And I just wanted to talk about that just a little bit. If there's any other little placement that I want to talk about more specifically, I'm probably just going to do a YouTube short about it, though. So, yeah, that's content for days. So let's just get into it. So Anthony Edwards being around the same level as Donovan Mitchell, I think that's simply because of recency bias when it comes to Anthony Edwards. When we look at his stats from this year, it wasn't the best, especially when it comes to just the regular season. Anthony Edwards. When we just look at his regular season stats, 21 point per game. He wasn't even an all-star, wasn't even really that much of an all-star consideration. But when we look at his playoff stats, yeah, we can see that he's obviously just a 25 point per game scorer on really good efficiency, really good efficient field goal percentage. You know, he's shooting 50% from the two-pointer, which is what you really want, and he's shooting really good from three. So he's obviously going to have, a 62% true shooting percentage. Let me just check. Playoffs. Yeah, like 60. So, of course, he's definitely a really solid shooter. My biggest question, though, also, I'm pretty sure I got this confirmed, but this is going to be a prediction going into next year, which it is what it is, but I still don't think that Anthony Edwards would be 25 when a guy like, what's his name, Darius Garland is that low. No. I don't like that. Also, Dorian Finney-Smith should have been in the top 100. Donovan Mitchell, I'm fine with this placement. Same with Bam Adebayo. I already talked about this a little bit before, and also this is after the whole Ime Udoka situation. I'm not going to touch about that more than I already did because there's still a lot of details that we don't know and that we're probably never going to know. So yeah, but Jaylen Brown, I don't think he's as high when we look at guys like who I don't think he's that much better than Marcus Smart, for example. I don't think he's that much better than Darius Garland, Jarrett Allen, those type of guys. I don't think that he's that much better. Chris Paul, I think that this is a solid place for him. For a guy like Anthony Davis, though, I think I've already talked about how I feel about him. I don't think I could confidently rank him, but I think that the 20s is definitely acceptable. Bradley Beal, I don't know. The thing about Bradley Beal is I think that we're starting to see a lot more players who are doing the same things that he's doing in terms of being a shot creator. I understand that last season he was really bad in the beginning, but in the season beforehand, he was, scoring 30 points per game. But I think that right now I'm starting to value a lot more of playmaking, a lot more of defense, and I'm starting to think that his stock is starting to go down, especially when it comes to his trade value. He's just not the type of guy to really be on a contending team. So I'm just starting to look at him a little bit different. Rudy Gobert, I think that this is a really good spot for him. However, I do think that him being that much ahead of Donovan Mitchell is not that reasonable in my opinion. Jimmy Butler, this is a really controversial opinion, but I do think that Jimmy Butler is really low. I think he's too low. Well, technically he's too high because 17, I think he's probably around Paul George range. He's around Damian Lillard range. Also, that's another thing. Let me just talk about the rest of these guys right now, I guess, because I could just lump them in because there's still a lot to go. So James Harden, he's too high. Like, why is he 11th? He's not. I'm 100% sure. If you're talking about the whole season, give me Paul George over him. Give me Karl Anthony Towns over him. Also, Kawhi should be the top 10. If you're gonna include him, bro, include him in everything. If you're not gonna include him, don't include him. Because 11th or 12th for Kawhi is crazy, especially when we have reports saying that Kawhi is gonna be 100% going into the next season. So yeah, I just don't think so. Karl Anthony Towns, he's not that high. Damian Lillard should probably be around where James Harden is. James Harden should be around where Jimmy Butler is, and everything else should move up. I think that Trae Young is probably the 12th, 13th best player in the NBA. So yeah, I think that this is pretty much it for it. I don't think that the players that much, except for Anthony Edwards and Jaylen Brown. I don't think that I have too much contention with them, but I do have a contention with where they're placed, and I think that that's pretty much my biggest problem with this part of the list. But yeah, I've already been slightly spoiled about. Oh yeah, wrong one, wrong one. Wrong one. But yeah, Devin Booker at 10 is absolutely nuts. Not only that, but he's not that much better than a guy like Bradley Beal. And I know what you guys are saying. Oh, he's been able to do this in the playoffs, but at the same time, bro, Devin Booker, when he gets limited in the playoffs, it gets really bad for the team. Let's just look at it from the Dallas series, for example. There are just games in that Dallas series where when Chris Paul and him weren't doing anything, bro, like look at the last three games. Like he wasn't that good. Like, and I understand that that could definitely be defined as recency bias because, he was still injured, don't get me wrong, but it's still a thing to consider that this guy is just. I think we need to see a little bit more from Devin Booker for me to really call him a top 10 player, especially when we have a guy like Trae Young, who I think is honestly better. I think a guy like John Morant, who is on this top 10, is honestly better. I just think that even Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, they should definitely be in this top 10 if Devin Booker's here. But again, I just, Now, this is where we kind of get controversial. Also, John Morant at 31 last year is nasty. I don't like that. I don't think that he was the 31st best player last year. I think he was definitely top 25. But John Morant, I actually like this spot from him. I just think that the players that we've seen in the other ranking, he should be around them. A guy like Jimmy Butler, a guy like Paul George, a guy like Trae Young, for example. I think that he's definitely around that range. So I think that that's something to consider. Now I'm going to talk about these three all in tandem because these are definitely a couple of controversial picks. Kevin Durant, I'm probably just going to spoil my top 20 for right now. I think I'm actually going to have Kevin Durant on the lower end, around the 7th, 8th, maybe even the 6th mark, because I don't think. Okay, by the way, they also had him at 1 last year. I 100% disagree with that. I think that we saw who the best player was. And spoiler alert, it's this guy right here. Also, this is a spoiler alert for my number one, is this guy right here. But I think Kevin Durant as a player, I think we've seen the biggest problem with him as a main playmaker in a championship level team. We saw it with Boston. I don't think that he could really just put up these gaudy numbers that he's been putting up, especially on the scoring end. And I just think that it's really bad for the teams to be really centered around Kevin Durant's playmaking. And I think that that's one thing that I'm kind of worsening on. Yeah, he's a really good shot creator, but I just don't think that he has necessarily the tools to really just be an offensive engine, if that makes sense. I think him and a Kawhi Leonard, I think that those guys should be like near the same level, especially because Kawhi Leonard is one of the best scorers in the league. If not, he's the best playoff scorer in the league. And I just think that that's something to look at. Jason Tatum, though, I don't think he's I don't think he's better than Kevin Durant, though. I don't know. Like, yeah, he's a better shot creator. Yeah. Well, he's not a better shot creator. I meant he's a better defender, and he may be a little bit better of a playmaker. But at the same time, is he really better than Kevin Durant? And I know I don't want to sound like one of the Kevin Durant fans who are like, oh yeah, he's Kevin Durant, don't sleep on it. Nah, but it is definitely the thing to think about. Kevin Durant just he has a lot more of a shot creating edge than Jason Tatum. I think we've seen that in the Warrior series. So I don't know about that. LeBron James at 6. I don't know, man. I think I like this. I think if I were to do a top 10, he may be like at my 6th spot. But let me just blitz through these things real quick, okay? So at 4 and 5, this is kind of where a lot of the disagreements comes in. For a guy like me, I think that Joel Embiid is definitely top 5. I think he's definitely top 5. I don't think that, or I do think that he's better than a guy like Anthony, or not Anthony Edwards, Anthony Davis. I think he's better than a guy like LeBron James or Kevin Durant right now. But I think that the reason why this list is starting to get a lot of hate is because Steph is this low. I think that the order of these three are correct. Like, I think that Steph, Joel Embiid, and Luka Doncic are around the same level in terms of where they should be ranked. However, I think that the order that I would put in would be maybe Luka at 5, maybe Joel and Stephen Curry. Though if you were to ask me, I think that I'd put Steph at 3 and then Joel at 4. But if you were to ask me earlier into the season, I definitely would have Joel Embiid at 3. No questions about it. So yeah, I think that those three are definitely contentious though. I think that it's not as big of a gap as a lot of people are trying to say, you know? So yeah. But I think that when we look at the top two, I don't think that there's necessary. Oh my God, they got him at 6 last year? 6? Oh no. Yo, this list may be horrible, bro. I don't know about this one. But yeah, I just don't. I think that the top two. I think that these are definitely my top two right now. I think that Jokic. There's a thing about Jokic though, and I want to put this up a little quick for right now. So Jokic's playmaking does definitely drop in the playoffs. However, I think that that's just accustomed to a lot of circumstances. You know, I think that the last 2 years, or was it 3 years? Yeah, the last 3 years, he's actually not been averaging as much assists in the playoffs. However, I think that that's not necessarily indicative of his game, but more so of the situation around him. When we look at the bubble season, ooh, let me just get this out of here. Move. All right, whatever. So when we look at the bubble season, we actually have a situation where this guy, Jamal Murray, was just going off. Let me just look at the game logs. So Jamal Murray was definitely going off in the offseason to where he was actually a really good playmaker too. And he was able to pull a lot of his weight, do a lot of the extra stuff when it comes to just being a perimeter shot creator, a perimeter playmaker too. You see, he's actually averaging more assists than Jokic was. And I don't really think that that's really a problem in this offense. I just think that that just works really well with what Jokic is, what he wants to do. I think if we were to look at his secondary assists, he's definitely up there. Like, he's probably still dominating over a guy like Jamal Murray, though. He's definitely the vocal player of the offense. And the last two off seasons, he just hasn't had Jamal Murray back, and I think that's something to really talk about. But I don't think that he's necessarily a playoff dropper. I think that he's definitely taking a scoring gap. Like, look, the last two seasons he's a 30-point per game scorer in the playoffs. That's what you want, especially when he's shooting 75% from two or from the field and 63% from two. Like, come on, man. Like, he's just him. The only thing is he had a turnover problem last year, but I don't think that that's going to be really requisite. I don't think that's going to be something that we're going to see often. So yeah, I think that that's a really good placement for him. Also, his playoff defense does drop, but it's not nearly as bad. So yeah. Also, Giannis Antetokounmpo, of course, my number one. So yeah. But besides that, I think that this list was really bad. But I think as we got higher in the ranks, it wasn't as bad. So yeah. That's been it for me though. I don't really want to talk about this list anymore. So yeah. It's your boy Nehemiah, aka Neo, and I hope you guys are having a great one.